My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. I'm going to walk through the entire UFC 279 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and bets. But before I jump in, let's talk very quickly about UFC Paris because we crushed that card. We made a bunch of money. Hopefully you did too. And if you were a premium member, you made more money than everybody else. Let me brag for a second here. First of all, our premium member exclusive parlay hit. All 4 legs hit. So the 2-leg, the 3-leg, and the 4-leg premium member parlay hit. I'm up units. Jacob is up units. Our prize picks entry hit. Our monkey knife fight knockout kings entry hit. And finally, Jacob's lock of the week hit for the 9th week in a row. If you don't know what that is, Jacob picks an underdog every single week. An underdog every single week. And this is his 9th in a row of crushing that. So guys, make sure you become a premium member. It is only $10 a month. And all of our premium members who are already here, we have almost 1,000 of them, you made a bunch of money last night. So the premium membership paid for itself basically for the entire year. So WeWantPicks.com at the top, click become a member. You get that exclusive premium member parlay. You get all of our picks early, all of our bets early, and you get everything you could ever need to make some money, including a DraftKings optimizer. We have an optimizer that will build lineups for you, up to 150 of them, and it's only $10 a month. WeWantPicks.com, click become a member, $2.50 a week. You can't possibly complain about that price point. And if you want $50 for free, all you need to do is go to WeWantPicks.com/bets, sign up with any one of our betting partners, and I'll send you $50 as a thank you. That's WeWantPicks.com/bets. Sign up, make a deposit, make a good deposit, because they'll match it. You give them 100, they'll give you 250, right? Each book has its own deposit match, but they'll give you some solid free money. Take all of that free money, then let us know, and I will send you an additional $50, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, however you want it, WeWantPicks.com/bets. Let's jump right in. And it's an interesting card. Lots of good fights, actually, but it's not a star-studded, power-packing pay-per-view. But we're going to break it down. We're going to have some fun. UFC Paris was kind of weak, too, and that ended up being an awesome card. So opening up, we got Darian Weeks taking on Yohan Lainesse. Darian Weeks is coming off that loss to Ian Gary, where even though he had a takedown and 3 minutes of control time, he was completely outstruck. Darian is a wrestler who is very comfortable striking. He has very real power in his hands. He has explosive takedowns, and he has legit submissions. He is a threat. He has yet to need his takedown defense in the UFC, but it is very impressive. He has incredible balance, and he defends them effortlessly while standing on one leg. Yohan Lainesse is a grappler who can knock you out with anything from a check hook to an overhand. His striking is not very technical, but he has some very real power. He wings big, heavy punches while charging forward, and as soon as you get comfortable striking with him, he's going to shoot a double leg, clean up the middle. And once he hits the ground, he works for control and starts pounding away. Everything he does looks like it hurts. He definitely is on the slower side in the division, and he has a tendency to brawl, so a technical striker could absolutely pick him apart. And it's an interesting fight for Darian because this is going to be his first opponent in the UFC that's actually looking to grapple. The first opponent that he can use his wrestling on. And I love Darian in this matchup. I think he's going to have the better striking. And even if he doesn't have the same power as Yohan, he's going to be more technically sound and much faster. I think their takedowns are probably going to be about the same, but the difference will be the takedown defense. Darian's defense is incredible. It's like old school BJ Penn type flexibility and composure. So I think Darian's going to dictate where this fight goes, and that person's going to dictate who wins this fight. So I like Darian Weeks here to get that done. I have a money line bet on him at -134. And if you were a premium member, you saw that I placed that, I don't know, about a week ago at this point? Then we got Elise Reed taking on Melissa Martinez. Melissa Martinez making her UFC debut. And Elise Reed is a pretty active fighter. She never slows down, and she has very good power for the weight class. She has decent grappling and good cardio as well. She can be hot and cold in her performances, though, right? She had that big upset win over Corey McKenna, where she was able to showcase how talented she actually is. And then she came back and she was just dismantled by Sam Hughes. Melissa Martinez is a very powerful striker who can knock anyone out at this weight class. She's an active striker with solid footwork and good enough takedown defense to keep it on her feet. But her grappling isn't only takedown defense. She's got solid trip and uchimatas off the cage as well. If she does get taken down, she does not have much to offer offensively, but does have solid submission defense. And this is her UFC debut and the biggest test of her career, but she's proven to be tough and able to fight back from adversity. If you go watch her fight against Desiree Yanez, she was full mounted, completely dominated, but she never lost focus. She was able to get back in there and get that win. And I like Melissa Martinez here. I mean, she has legit power on her feet, solid takedown defense, and even some clinch throws if she needs to get a takedown herself. Elise is active and will likely look to dance around the outside, but I think Melissa will have the cleaner technique and more power. We cannot ignore the fact that Elise's losses are grappling based, and I don't imagine that there's going to be much grappling in this fight, but I still think Melissa's the pick, and I honestly think there is value on her at -150. I haven't pulled the trigger on that bet yet, and I actually think those odds are going to move. So she is probably worth -150 if you want to jump on that now. I haven't done it just yet, but I do think Melissa Martinez is absolutely going to get the win. Then we have Chad Anheliger taking on Heili Alateng, and Chad Anheliger is a real prospect. His fighting style is power striker with solid ground, which is exactly how he won his last fight against Jesse Strader. He blasted him and then punched him out for the finish on the ground. He sets a nice pace and he hits incredibly hard. His takedown defense is okay, but his sweeps and get-up game are very impressive. If he gets on top, he will absolutely tee off. He's 2-0 in the UFC, which is very impressive considering he has given up a combined 9 takedowns in those fights. Heili Alateng is a technical striker that can work in grappling when needed. He took down Ryan Benoit 4 times and Dana Bagarai 3 times in those wins. The problem can be that because he's technical, he can struggle with those brawler type strikers. He did just absolutely decimate Kevin Kroom in less than a minute, which was nice to see because he didn't wait. He didn't wait for the fight to come to him, which he does tend to do. Heili is a well-rounded fighter who is better than his 3-2 UFC record. And I'm going to go with the underdog here. I've been very high on Heili Alateng in the past, but I like Chad's power. I like his ability to just really not give a shit if he's taken down. He doesn't let it frustrate him at all. If he works back up and just starts firing away, he's going to have a ton of success. I see Heili working a grappling game plan like he did against Dana, and that actually does worry me here, but unlike Dana, I think Chad just pops right back up and he makes Alateng pay for every single one of those entry attempts. So I like Chad Anheliger in the underdog spot here. I'll probably throw a drip or two on that. And if you are a premium member, you can check out all of our bets right now, nice and early. And we have bets there for months in the future. So make sure you get on them before the line moves. We talked about the success we had at UFC Paris. Well, a bunch of those bets, like the Robert Whittaker significant strike line, the Robert Whittaker money line, and a few others were ahead of the curve. Made a bunch of money on Nasrat long before that line took off. So make sure you become a premium member. It's only $10 a month. $10 a month. You'll see all of our bets, get access to all of the tools long before the general public. That takes us to Norma Dumont, and she's taking on Danyelle Wolf, who is early in her UFC career. Norma Dumont is a very good striker who is relaxed and patient in the cage. Her striking is very technical, and she did used to have a 100% takedown defense before she was taken down 6 times by Macy Chiasson in her last fight. If you look at her strike differential, she's landed about 4 and receiving about 2 in return, which is very solid. On top of her technical striking, Norma has solid grappling. Her takedowns are not great, but she does have takedowns in 4 of her 5 UFC fights, including 2 against Ashley Evans Smith. Her grappling is more defensive than offensive, but she's got solid top pressure and control. Danyelle Wolf has almost no MMA experience at all, but worlds of combat experience. She is a high-level boxer with many national championships, and the only reason she didn't compete in the Olympics is because they didn't have her weight class. She fights exactly as you would expect a boxer to fight in MMA. She's got good power, good footwork, solid defense, and we have no idea what her takedown defense is going to look like, but I imagine that is why the odds what they are. Right now, Norma Dumont sits at more than a 3-1 favorite, which I totally understand, right? She's one of the better fighters in the world's best MMA promotion, but she's also primarily a striker, and she's fighting a striker who should be worlds ahead of her. If Norma didn't have those takedowns in her back pocket, I would be all in on Danyelle, but unfortunately she does, right? She's got 5 takedowns in 5 fights. And frankly, I just think she's going to come in here and grapple the hell out of Danyelle Wolf. So I got 0 bets on this fight. I am going to be rooting for Danyelle just because I love the idea of just a high-level boxer coming in here and just shaking up the division. But I have to assume she's going to get taken down, controlled, potentially submitted in this fight. So Norma Dumont's the pick because of the grappling. But, you know, I'm interested to see what happens in this fight. Then we got Jake Collier, and he's taking on Chris Barnett. And as you know by now, Jake Collier was a really big, physically fit middleweight, and then he sort of loosened up to light heavyweight, and now he's very loose at heavyweight. But he remains a solid fighter. Technique-wise, he's a volume striker with forward pressure and not much power at heavyweight, but he did showcase how well-rounded he actually is in a submission win over Chase Sherman. And then more recently, he had 2 takedowns against Andrei Arlovski. And I had a bet on Andrei Arlovski in that fight, and that bet did cash, but Jake Collier won that fight. So he should be coming off an impressive win over a UFC Hall of Famer. Chris Barnett doesn't look like it, but he is very athletic and shockingly dynamic. Chris has very real power and will manage to land strikes, even though he almost always has the shorter reach. He hasn't taken his career too seriously in the past, but ever since joining the UFC, he does seem to have sort of stepped up that side of things. The issue with Chris is while he is powerful and athletic, he does not handle pressure well. Martin Buday was just able to push him around and ultimately break him in his last fight. He was being outstruck, outbullied, and while he would just throw bombs, they just were not connecting. Jake is sitting at almost a 4-1 favorite right now, and that has to be recency bias because Jake essentially just beat Andrei Arlovski. And while Chris tried to pull an Aljo, sort of sneaking out a, ooh, I can't continue type win, that's not how that went. So if we put those fights aside and we just break down their abilities, like ignore their last fights, Chris has the higher ceiling. Right? He's going to be faster. He's going to be more athletic. He's going to hit harder. Jake is absolutely going to be tougher and more well-rounded. So this is really just going to come down to Chris's toughness, right? If he stays active and he pushes, Chris dominates this fight. But if he just plants and he just looks for those one big punch knockouts or those big spinning kicks, then he's going to be completely outstruck. And unfortunately, I think that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to look for the big shots, but he's going to end up getting hit 5 times for every one that he throws. Jake's the pick, but these odds are way too wide, especially considering this is essentially volume striker with no real power versus very talented, powerful guy. So Jake Collier is the pick. I'll be rooting for Chris Barnett. You know, I spent some time with him in the past, so hopefully Chris is able to pull this off, but Jake probably jabs and dances his way to a win. Then we have Denis Tiuliulin taking on Jamie Pickett, and this fight has been rescheduled from UFC Vegas back in July. Jamie Pickett's a solid striker who uses his length to manage the range and to keep people at bay. If you look at his stats, he has a 3-4 striking differential. So he is hit more than he hits his opponent, and that's 100% because he is gun shy. He just doesn't let his hands go when he should, and he can be frustrating to watch at times because you know he's the better striker, but he's just not throwing those punches. Denis Tiuliulin, I want to say Tiuliulin, but it's Tiuliulin, is a really fun come-forward fighter who's always hunting for a finish. He has no problem getting to a slugfest, and I actually think that's what he wants. It's almost as if game plan is to just make the fight ugly and as fast-paced as possible, and he thrives in that chaos. He's got legit power in his hands, but he does have some grappling holes. This could be a fun fight because even though he is gun-shy, Jamie Pickett is dangerous, and Denis Tiuliulin loves making fights dirty. If Jamie manages range and then engages with some takedowns, which we've seen him do in fights against Holmes, Staropoli, and Chukwu, then I can see him having some very real success here. But if he's too patient with his strikes and he lets Tiuliulin get in his face, then I think he ends up in a war, and he just is not going to want that. So right now, Pickett's an okay favorite, but I think this fight is close. Both of them have very clear paths to win. Tiuliulin, high volume brawl. Pickett to win a well-timed grappling, work on the outside type fight. I'm going to lean Pickett here because he does have 8 takedowns in the UFC, and he is a good striker, but these low-volume guys can be very frustrating to watch. So Jamie Pickett is the pick, but we're going to need him to step up the pace and work in some takedowns. Then we have Jailton Almeida, and he's taking on short notice opponent Anton Turkalj. Jailton Almeida is the real deal. He's a phenomenal prospect. He's got power in his hands, incredible grappling, and all of his wins are by stoppage. That's because of his non-stop pressure. He will come in hot and relentlessly work for takedowns. Once he's on the ground, he will chase submissions and hit you in every single transition. If he has a flaw, it's that he takes risks that he shouldn't on the ground, and he ends up getting swept or being put into positions that he really doesn't need to be in. But he has had success at light heavyweight, heavyweight, and now this fight is at a catch weight of 220 pounds. But technically, that's a heavyweight fight, right? Because it's over the 205-pound limit. Anton Turkalj is a fun, athletic striker who will mix it up on his feet and have no problem taking risks. He has an incredibly diverse striking style where he will spin, he will kick, he will charge forward, and he will just mix it all up together. At times, it can look sloppy, but it does feel calculated. And I categorize him as a striker, but he absolutely can grapple. His offensive BJJ is solid, and we know he can wrestle. He had 11 takedowns in his Contender Series fight in July. His pressure is absolutely incredible, and that's what separates him from most people. He fights at 100% effort the entire time, and it doesn't matter if he is striking or grappling. He's young in his career, but he has been training at a high level for many years. And I mentioned this fight is at a catch weight, but frankly, both men are light heavyweights. Jailton was prepared to fight at heavyweight, and Anton is stepping up on short notice. I do think Jailton will be the larger man in the cage, but I'm not sure if that matters, right? The odds on this fight are absolutely crazy. They have Jailton as a minus 900 favorite. And I'm not saying I disagree with those odds, but I do think people just see Jailton, see short notice opponent, and they just bet the hell out of that line. Because Jailton should win this fight, but frankly, Anton has power, pressure, grappling, and if he just charges forward looking to grapple, he can have some success here. So Jailton Almeida is definitely the pick, but these odds are too crazy to really, you don't want to be all in on Jailton Almeida just yet at these odds. Then we have Hakeem Dawodu, and he's taking on Julian Erosa. Hakeem Dawodu is a high-level striker who throws everything with power. He sets a nice forward pressure pace, and he still manages to have excellent counter punches. He will walk forward throwing leg kicks and straights, and when you fire back, he dips his head, and then he throws again. He's incredibly technical, and he has very real power. He's coming off a dominant win over Mike Trizano, where he was more than doubling Mike's strikes, and that's a fantastic win because Mike Trizano is also a solid striker. Julian Erosa is incredibly fun to watch. He's a violent striker with a ton of finishes. He throws absolutely everything with intent, and even if he is a bit hittable, so far it's been fine because he's got a solid chin. He has most of his success fighting at range, but he has no problem getting sucked into a firefight. He has solid MMA jiu-jitsu if he needs it, like we saw against Charles Jourdain, but it's not something he looks for when he gets his takedowns. It's really just for damage. He is coming off a win over Steve Peterson where he relied way too heavily on his chin, and he only won that fight because of a couple late takedowns. And I love Dawodu in this matchup, and it honestly comes down to their last fights. Hakeem won a technical striking match against a very high-level striker. Julian was losing striking exchanges against a low-level striker, and he relied on his chin and a late takedown, and that's just not going to fly in this fight. Hakeem is not Steve Peterson, and I think he has a ton of success here. Julian's chin has held up in the past, and he is such a dog that he really can grit out a win against anybody, but his chin is starting to show wear, and that's not a game plan that you can ride out very long. Hakeem is absolutely the pick. I got a money line bet on him, and if we've learned anything about people who rely on their chins from UFC Paris, it's not forever. It's not forever, right? We talked about Tai Tuivasa's chin and how incredible it is, but it's starting to show cracks. And then Cyril Gane showed those cracks or exposed those. Julian Erosa, similar situation. So Hakeem's the pick. Moneyline bet on him. If you are a premium member, you would have seen that bet and gotten ahead of the line movement. Go to WeWantPicks.com. At the top of the page, click Become a Member. It's freaking $10 a month. That's nothing. Let's be real. That is nothing. All of our premium members from UFC Paris, you paid for months or years worth of premium membership off of just the safety parlay alone. That exclusive parlay available only to premium members has paid for membership time and time again. Sign up now. WeWantPicks.com. At the top, click Become a Member. It's $2.50 a week. Then we have the main card opener of Johnny Walker and Ion Cutelaba. Johnny Walker is a very big light heavyweight at 6'6", but not only is he massive, he's fast, powerful, athletic, and wild. He's fun to watch, and he gets very creative with his striking. He will spin, he will jump, and he will smile that whole time. He's very unorthodox and very dangerous because all of his crazy striking techniques have legit power behind them. The problem is that everything that I just said for Johnny Walker was the 2019 version of Johnny Walker. He started training at SBG Ireland, and they have literally ruined him. The wild Johnny that would throw people off became a low-volume, gun-shy, technical striker who never looks comfortable. So there's gyms that can really bring out the best in people, and there are gyms that will ruin your style because they don't look at what you do well and try to feed off of that. They just try to turn you into something you aren't. And that's what happened to Johnny Walker. Ion Cutelaba is definitely a grappler, but he also has really good power in his hands, and he's happy to fight in a phone booth. He's a feast or famine kind of guy, so he will chase a stoppage, and he may get stopped doing it. He's good on the ground, and he racks up tons of takedowns, but they can be sloppy body locks that are really more muscle than technique. Cutelaba gets finished in his losses, but that's traditionally to great strikers or very good BJJ guys. His last loss to Ryan Spann was an unfortunate one because he had 3 takedowns, but he left his neck out there and he got submitted in the first round. And this feels like a weird fight because it's essentially a battle of the busted prospects. Both of these men have fought the who's who of the division, but they've had mixed results. Overall, I would say Johnny Walker is probably the better MMA fighter. He can strike, he can grapple. He always has had a size advantage, a solid chin, and volume to get him there, but he's not been himself these last few years, and it's so hard to know what you're going to get with him. If I knew Johnny would actually throw his hands and try to win, he would be an easy pick, but it may be another staring contest like against Santos, and he might end up getting taken down 5 times, 15 times. Who knows with 3 rounds? My gut wants to pick Walker, but I think I'm just going to not hang on to the past here, and I got to get rid of emotion. Ryan Spann took him down twice. Nikita Krylov took him down 3 times. So I have to imagine Cutelaba, nonstop grapples, gets it done. So Cutelaba's the pick, but I really am going to be rooting for an old school Johnny Walker to show up here. Then we have Irene Aldana taking on Macy Chasson. Irene Aldana is a very technical boxer with legit power. She sets a solid pace and is able to keep the fight standing with her 84% takedown defense. Her most recent loss is to former professional boxer Holly Holm, who respected Aldana's boxing so much that she actually started wrestling and took her down 5 times. Her most recent win was an impressive TKO over Yana Kunitskaya in the first round. But while she's usually the better striker in a matchup, she does have a negative striking differential and can be pieced up by some of the more technical strikers like a Caitlin Chikagian. Macy Chasson is tall and long, and she uses that length really well to jab you up and work her Muay Thai striking. She has a positive striking differential and okay power. If you get past her length, you can have success staying in her face, but when she can keep distance, she is very good and very technical. She has added grappling to her game plan as well, which is an entirely new wrinkle. She took down Norma Dumont 6 times in that win and Raquel Pennington once in that loss. On the surface, I understand why Irene is the favorite here, but I actually don't agree with it, especially not at these 2-to-1 odds that we're seeing. Macy can beat Irene the exact same way Holly Holm did. Manage distance and then work in takedowns. Irene has raw power, but Macy is great at staying away. And now that we've seen how comfortable she is grappling, I have to imagine that that's going to be her game plan. So I'm going to go with Macy for the upset. And I'm going to grab a tiny little money line bet. The odds that I got that at are plus 178. And Macy has proven to be punching above her weight class. Not literally, right? She doesn't hit that hard, but figuratively speaking, she's got some solid wins and has proven to be an evolving fighter. So I've got Macy Chasson here and a tiny little touch of a moneyline bet. And then we have one of the more interesting fights on the card. We got Kevin Holland taking on Daniel Rodriguez. Kevin Holland is a middleweight. He has moved down to welterweight, but this fight is at a 180-pound catchweight instead of welterweight. I'm not 100% sure why, but it is. Kevin Holland is an accurate and powerful striker who has miserable takedown defense, but is a solid grappler. Other than the wrestling, Kevin Holland is a killer. He's a sniper on his feet with great accuracy and range. He can also grapple really well and be a problem on the ground with his length. But just because it is ridiculously easy to take him down, it doesn't mean that you're safe on the ground. Tim Means took him down twice in his last fight, but he was submitted in the second round. Daniel Rodriguez is a very good boxer who picks his shots well. He's got good takedown defense, but not much to offer in the grappling department, which may not matter here. His boxing is crisp and his cardio is very good, which is an asset for him because even though he's got a bunch of knockouts, he doesn't go looking for them. He doesn't just start winging big power punches and chasing knockouts. He works his boxing, wears you down, and that power comes later when you start to slow down. And this should be a really fun fight and the perfect opportunity to see how good Kevin Holland's striking actually is. Danyelle will be the best pure striker that we've seen Kevin Holland fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing him just not have to worry about takedowns. And obviously he has beaten other strikers like Joaquin Buckley, but Buckley's sort of a big power guy where Danyelle is technique and speed. I think this fight is definitely closer than the 2-1 odds. I got to go with Kevin here. He's going to be larger, should be more powerful. If he does get hit, we've seen him withstand some solid power. If it goes to the ground, he's going to be light years ahead of Daniel Rodriguez. So it's a very interesting matchup. I'm not going to argue with anybody picking D-Rod here, but I got to go with Kevin Holland. But I'm very interested to see how good he actually is on his feet. Then we have the co-main event of the evening. And listen, it's kind of a weak co-main event. I'm going to be honest with you. This is not the most exciting co-main event, especially on an $80 pay-per-view, but I do expect this to be a pretty fun fight. We got Jing Lang taking on Tony Ferguson, and Jing Lang Lee is a very good boxer with volume and very real power. He mixes in low kicks to slow you down before sending those power overhands right over the top. But as solid as his striking is, he does have holes in the grappling. He is not a complete fish out of water on the ground, but his 58% takedown defense gives his opponents a path to victory if they're worried about those hands, and that power. He is coming off an incredible win over Salikov where he absolutely flatlined him in the second round. Tony Ferguson is coming back after one of the worst knockouts we have ever seen, and that was only 3 months ago. He looked like an unstoppable force when he was riding a 12-fight win streak loaded with submissions and TKOs, but that quickly turned into a 4-fight losing streak that started with Justin Gaethje. Style-wise, he's an active striker with a wide array of techniques. He doesn't have a ton of power, but he just breaks people with constant pressure. He landed 104 strikes against Donald Cerrone, 115 against Anthony Pettis, and neither one of those fights saw the third round. And that's just incredible. Those stats are incredible. Tony's biggest issue used to be his psyche, but at this point in his career, his biggest issue is his chin. He actually looked good against Michael Chandler, and he won that first round on all 3 judges' scorecards before, night. And I actually feel bad about this fight. Tony was a straight-up legend just a few years ago. People talking about he's going to beat Khabib, and they were positive when they were saying it, and there was a genuine case to be made. Now he's on a 4-fight losing streak, coming off one of the worst KOs in UFC history. And not long ago, his wife was talking about how he's literally losing his mind. A lot's going on with Tony here, and unfortunately for him, the sport at this point has probably taken more from him than given to him, and I just don't see him winning here. His turnaround is way too fast given that knockout. That was just a few months ago, and if he sticks to a grappling game plan, he could definitely win, right? He's a college wrestler, and if he does that, he can find the success, but he's likely going to get blasted again, and with that being said, I got to go with Jing Lang here. Tony is an absolute warrior. I'm sure he's going to choose to go out on his shield instead of shooting takedowns. So Jing Lang's the pick. He's likely going to get a stoppage, and It's sad to see. You don't want to see some of these guys start to go crazy and then start to get dragged out of there the way that Tony Ferguson did in his last fight, and probably in this fight. Jinglang's a solid monkey knife fight knockout king candidate for sure. And then we have the main event of the evening. We have Khamzat Chimaev taking on Nate Diaz. And let's be real. This isn't the hardest fight to break down, but it's a fun fight. It's an exciting fight. And I'm definitely going to be definitely interested in this fight, regardless of what the odds tell you what will happen. And Khamzat Chimaev is one of the most popular fighters on the planet right now. Everybody knows him. Everybody likes him. And it seems like everybody wants to train with him. And well, Instagram is just loaded with fighters taking pictures of training with Khamzat. He has very good wrestling, very good grappling, very good ground and pound, and legit hands. He sets an incredible pace, and he's always hitting you with something. He has that Khabib-style chain wrestling with an added layer of striking. His stats are insane. He has 5 fights in the UFC, and he managed to get through the first 4 of them by only being punched 1 single time. He is coming off that absolute war with Gilbert Burns where he had 2 takedowns, a knockdown, but he landed fewer strikes. And a lot of people think he lost, but regardless of if you think he won or lost that fight, my issue with him in that fight was his game plan. He essentially refused to wrestle even when he was losing some of those striking exchanges. So I think what happened was he dropped Gilbert in the first and then was just sticking to the striking after that. So we did find out that Khamzat is actually a human being, but we also found out that he's tough as shit and a ton of fun. Nate Diaz is an absolute legend who did the sport his way. He never bowed down to the UFC, never changed who he was, and he put on incredible fight after incredible fight since 2004. He has beaten fellow legends like Donald Cerrone, Jim Miller, Conor McGregor, and Anthony Pettis. Style-wise, he's a high-volume striker with incredible cardio and a BJJ black belt. His jiu-jitsu is very slick, and he is live off of his back, but he almost never initiates takedowns, and the BJJ is really just there as a threat if he is taken down. And I imagine we're all on the same page here, right? We all want we all know Khamzat's going to win, but we all will be rooting for Diaz. And I think it's pretty much that simple for every single one of us. I don't know anybody who genuinely, legitimately will put their money where their mouth is and thinks Nate Diaz wins this fight. I also don't know anybody who is just hoping Khamzat destroys him. I think we all want to see Nate Diaz get the win, flip off the UFC, and walk out. In all likelihood, what's going to happen is Khamzat's going to beat on him. This might be 25 minutes, but it could also be like the BMF fight where, these Diaz brothers bloody up pretty quick. So Khamzat's going to get this win, and I think we all want Nate Diaz to walk out of there, head held high after a great fight, and then go beat the absolute piss out of Jake Paul in a boxing match 6 months from now. That's what I want to see. I imagine that's what you guys want to see. But Khamzat's going to win this fight. We did see Nate Diaz. He got the current welterweight champion on ice skates, right? He blasted Leon Edwards in that last round and just didn't pour it on. But potentially this whole division looks a little different if Nate Diaz poured it on. But the reality is Khamzat should get this win. Should be a pretty straightforward win for him. But we'll all be rooting for Nate Diaz, and hopefully, I really do want to see him beat the piss out of Jake Paul. I don't know why. But anyway, guys, go to WeWantPicks.com and become a premium member. You hear me plug it all the time. It's working, though. We have almost 1,000 members, and all of them have made a ton of money just picking and choosing a few bets here and there. We're coming off the success of UFC Paris. Let's ride that into UFC 279. WeWantPicks.com. At the top, click Become a Member. All of our bets are up. All of our picks are up, and you get everything before the line moves. And even if you disagree with everything that comes out of my mouth, even if you disagree with everything that comes out of Jacob's mouth, we have a DraftKings optimizer. That is more than enough for the cost of entry. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member, and we will see you the rest of this week with the rest of our content.